F-bombs are optional. I will get going here in a second once I got us on the Facebook.
What if we already started drinking? Is that okay?
Totally. 100%. In a room like you're in, I'd expect nothing less. Yeah, it's just us right now. We'll get like 10 or 15 on here and then have a bunch on Facebook. And then, like I said before, by the weekend, we'll have like 1,000 or so views.
Columbus, Ohio. 7 years notice. We need a recommendation from Steve England. Steve, you see the chat? You had a question already in the chat.
Oh, I did. Let's see, where's, now we're going to reveal my age and technical ability here. No button that says chat. I'm done. I don't know where I'm going. So where's my wife when I
Go down to the bottom. It reveals itself.
All on the top. Here we go.
Oh wait, you're on a
iPad
tablet thing?
Did we just read it to him?
A little bit different.
Yeah, I'll read it to you. Oh, so it's from Steve and Martha Hewitt over in Columbus. Hey, thanks for joining us again. Always, as always. They are, let's see, they're having 70-degree weather and spring rain, and daffodils are coming up right now. They want a recommendation from Steve Anglum. Should we open an Anglum Best Barrel 05 or the 16, is it Charisse to enjoy for today's show?
Well, I'd probably go back to the beginning, go back to the 05, go back and do that.
Steve and Martha, he says go back to the 05. We will hold you to this. You got to tell us what it's tasting like and everything, at least by the end of the show. Since you're tasting it now.
When they get to that age, it's really a matter of whether the cork made it or not, more than whether the wine made it.
Yeah.
All righty. Look at that. We're actually ahead of ourselves already. And I've got us on. We've got a few people already watching us. I see a lot of our familiar faces, the Everwines, Mark Baer, Mike Wilkie, Nancy Gillis, Paul Maynard, and of course the Hewitts. And then I'm waiting to hear from over on the Facebook side of things where we're at, and then we'll get going. Cool. All right, let's roll. All right, everyone. Hey, welcome back to another Paso Wine Hour. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Chris Toronto with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. And today we're talking about the El Pomar district. We'll get into where that is and everything here in Paso. But first, let's find out who we're talking to today. We've got Steve Anglum with Bovino Vineyards, Matt Merrill, as well as Jim Shoemate making a special appearance from Pomar Junction Vineyards and Winery, and Sauron Christensen. You know what? I was filming a promo yesterday, Sauron, and I nailed it. I had it. I was so good. And Matt was filming me. At the very end, I said, and Christian Sorensen from Hurst Ranch Winery. And then I realized what I had said and bleeped it, and it never made it on.
I've been called bleep, so it's okay.
So close. But that is a good name. We thought about changing over to that name, but that is a good name too. It's pretty strong.
It could be your alter ego. Anyway, Sauron Christensen with Hurst Ranch Winery. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Let's give you guys a quick 30-seconder running around the horn here, introducing yourselves and your brands. Sauron, let's start with you.
So yeah, my name's Sauron Christensen. I have been making wine in Paso for the last 21 years. I've worked with wineries, both large and small, and kind of now I'm at a mid-sized winery at Hurst Ranch. We do about 20,000 cases a year. We have a beautiful tasting room in San Simeon over on the coast, and we also have one at the winery in Paso. 56 acres of estate fruit here in the Estrella district, but we are very, very happy to purchase from multiple vineyards over in El Pomar, which is why Chris has asked me to be on with you today. So thank you.
Yeah, I heard Sauron talk a little bit over the Cab Collective. They have a cab camp going on now that I've been helping out as a camp counselor, as I'm called. And Sauron had some great things to say about the El Pomar district, and so I instantly wanted to invite him onto this. So thanks for joining me. All right, we've got Matt Merrill and we've got Jim Shoemate over there at Pomar Junction. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yeah, I'm Matt Merrill, and Jim Shoemate is the head winemaker here at Pomar Junction Vineyard and Winery. We're based in the middle of the El Pomar district, Pomar Junction Vineyard, and also Creston Ridge Vineyard. We're at Creston Ridge Vineyard right now in our family. My family's wine cellar, my family's ranch here, and so we make a lot of different wines from this ranch and our Pomar Junction Vineyard, and then also my family sells a lot of grapes to other guys like Sauron and other winemakers as well.
Cool. That I swear that looks like a made-up background, and it's not, right?
Mm-mm.
You can walk back there.
I can.
You can walk into image.
I can.
Well, it's
I'll
pretty
break
rad. I had since we were doing the wine exchange, I had the ability to pop in there and check that place out, and it's pretty sweet. So thanks for joining us. All right, Steve Anglin, Bovino Vineyards, welcome.
Hey, I'm Steve Anglin. Came to Paso Robles in 2002, started my own little winery. Since then, I've worked for a bunch of different wineries, been with Bovino Vineyards and its predecessor winery since for about 8 years now. And then also make wine for another half a dozen or so people. Some admit it, some don't. So
It's the kind of thing where you can drive down the road and, you know, you look at that one, it's like Steve made that one, Steve made that one, and that one.
down the end of the book, you go, yeah, I made that one. I made a little bit of that one. It's kind of fun, actually. Yeah.
Right on. Well, we are talking about the El Pomar district today. Let me put that up on the screen real quick for everybody to see. So that way we can kind of base what we're talking about, where we're talking about anyway. Oops, there we go, right there. Aha. All righty. So we're joining you from like me downtown. We've got Steve out here, almost kind of where the eye is, I guess you could say, of the Pomar district. The home ranch of Pomar Junction, of course, is over here by the junction, kind of where that eye sits on district, the first eye. And then, but you guys are actually sitting over here somewhere near this O or something like that, I think, or maybe just above it. And then Hurst Ranch Winery is up here in the Estrella district, kind of up in this area here, but sourcing fruit from here and all over. But the Pomar district, I want to say real quick, historically, it was actually much of an almond growing area, so much so that it actually kind of distinguished Paso as this almond capital of California. We had that grain elevator downtown, of course, and almonds all over, but Pomar in general was really seen as this rich growing area for almonds at the time. And this is, you know, back in the early 1800s, of course. But then, of course, that crop gave way to vines because everything kind of moved to the Central Valley with farming, fertile lands, big open wide spaces, and, you know, the advent of mechanized farming. And so then this area became really great for farming wine grapes, especially because the soils are definitely something to really take notice to, because I think a lot of people will kind of equate the calcareous type soils, calcareous shale or limestone, to the Western AVAs like the Adelaida District or Willow Creek, to some extent Templeton Gap. But the Pomar really has a lot of it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here and some of the history and why El Pomar anyway. from these guys. I actually want to kick it to Matt first, because Matt, and I'll reshare again here in just a second, but I had the real pleasure of touring a newer vineyard of theirs in their portfolio of vineyards there yesterday. Absolutely stunning. The elevation, is just, it's quite dramatic there as well. Matt, talk a little bit about your family's history in planting in the El Pomar and why, and what attracted you to it, since now you have how many acres?
Well, let's see, there's a couple properties together, like 450 acres or so of that. Probably around 300 acres are planted right now. So yeah, we really we fell in love with the area. We kind of go back. My dad's an old farmer who's farmed everything that's legal, he says, and now he kind of found his way into wine grapes, and we managed vineyards up in King City, California, along the Central Coast, and then we managed some vineyards down Santa Maria, and we chose to live in the middle here in Paso, and it was right when it was just starting to blow up. And eventually, after some time went by, we were able to afford to purchase a property, and that's where we purchased Pomar Junction Vineyard. And yeah, what we liked about it is what you got up on the screen right there. You have the lanai soils, just those white rocks that you see at the bottom there are just in abundance through that vineyard right there that we put in last year. So that's some real nice calcareous rock with some that Lanai Colado soil series. So we just fell in love with the area, the climate, the terroir, the rolling hills and the soils, but also the openness, like you're talking about. There's steep slopes, but they're in general not overly steep to where you can still farm them, and a lot of open land over in this neck of the woods. So that helped a lot. And then the water over here is good quality as well. So all things kind of put together led us to exploring this area, and this El Pomar area just kind of blew up as well. There's a lot of other vineyards and wineries that desire this area now as well.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of brands, it's no secret that a lot of brands around town have sought out some pieces of property for themselves, like J. Lore, for instance, even Justin. I think Gallo has a little bit out there, and a few others that are sourcing. Definitely see a lot of benefit in seeking out fruit from the El Pomar. Sauron, I know that from that conversation that we're having over at the Cab Collective Cab Camp thing, you specifically said, I dig El Pomar for this fruit. Tell us a little bit about that. What were you seeking out from the El Pomar, and why?
I'd have to be honest, we weren't seeking it out. It was more someone introduced us to us, actually a vineyard manager, and we absolutely fell in love with the area. So if I have to generalize, I think El Pomar produces some of the most balanced fruit out of Paso. Especially I'm speaking about Bordeaux varietals. So if someone tasked me with making a standalone Cab Sauv from one vineyard, I would pick El Pomar. I just think the balance between acidity, texture, fruit character, it really has a great deal of harmony. Whereas some of the other sub-AVAs certainly have their strengths. I mean, Adelaida, it's tough to argue with the tannin structure you can get out of it. And we get this beautiful soft fruit out of our Estrella Cab at our ranch here. But I just feel like the El Pomar fruit stand alone, and that's not just for Cab Sauv, but for Merlot. We've had Cab Franc out of there. For the most part, it's just impeccably well behaved, and it just has a natural balance about it that I really quite enjoy.
Yeah, and I know, speaking of the calcareous nature of the soils, like I'd already mentioned before, is that with the Adelaida oftentimes being sought after for the soil type here in Paso, I guess it's little known that you can get very similar qualities out of the El Pomar. But I suppose it's been decomposed, and it's a little older though than Adelaida. Isn't that right, Matt?
Yeah, it seems like it. There's the rocks out here are kind of in some areas it's a little more just chalky. Like at Pomar, we have a lot more of just straight chalk falling apart, brittle layers. versus over here at this Crescent Ridge Ranch, we seem to have bigger chunks of bigger rocks that are, even when we went through and ripped, they were all probably one continuous piece. And then as we ripped, it broke into and fractured it up so that we can plant into it. So
Yeah, and where you are, you're a little bit more north of where you were talking about it being a little bit more brittle, and so I think that's a little bit interesting in that you're getting if anything closer to the Geneseo district from where you are, but you're yet finding these more complete pieces. Now, hey Steve, so the soils over there at Bovino. Now, Bovino is a little bit like about a mile due east of the Pomar Junction property. Are we talking the same thing? I mean, you grow a lot of different varieties out there. I'm gonna guess there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah, we grow 17 different varietals on 7 different rootstocks, which is rather foolish, actually. But the soils out here tend to be they're kind of the alluvial soils. They tend to be, for the most part, decomposed. We have some areas in the vineyard where there's some rocks. But for the most part, we'll see topsoils ranging from 16, 18 inches to maybe 35, 38 inches. And then it goes to a sandy loam or a clay loam down for the next 700 feet.
Nice. So this is a quick view of the property and some of the vineyards and the winery with the hospitality up above it. I think this one and some of the next few pictures gives a really good idea of some of the elevation changes that can happen in the Pomar. Oh, well, except that's a nice close-up pretty view of the vineyard, but in the background you can see that terraced vineyard that you have. And actually, although blurry by purpose, you can kind of see that there's a lot of white in between some of that trellising, and that's probably where some of that elevation goes and some of that uplift, where you find some of that calcareous stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and our elevation on this ranch runs from about 980 feet to about 1,120 feet, and it kind of rolls through in different parts of the property. So there's most of the grades here are in the 5% range, but we have some in the 35, 40%.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, and it is quite something to be seen too. Sitting out on the deck and having a glass of wine and even lunch, you get some really great views. And I think that might be through the trees there, the El Pomar or the Pomar Junction vineyard, maybe.
You're looking, I think they might be a little bit to the right, but you're kind of right direction.
Yeah, that way towards the gap.
Where they are.
Yeah.
And so I think in this picture, we were able to really see some of the soil where it's definitely different. It's not as all of that calcareous, although there's a lot of it ground down, but this stuff looks a lot darker.
Yeah, we've got 3 primary soil types, and they range from like a decomposed loam to a clay loam, a sandy loam to a clay loam. We're getting a lot more clay in the property when you get to that point.
Got it. And I think we go on back onto Matt's picture here. What's good about clay loam when it comes to Bordeaux varieties? I want to toss that to Sauron.
Yeah, so you were part of the Cab Collective thing the other day. I really touched on that. I love having clay in the soil because this last fall, I mean, it got up to what, 115, 117 degrees in Paso. And if you have a lot of clay in the soil, it just holds water so much better. It allows the vines to self-regulate in the face of a heat wave like that. So especially if you're getting closer to a picking decision, the vines aren't quite as reactive to a heat wave like that. You're not going to get the same desiccation of the fruit that you would, because if the vines are super, super thirsty, usually there's a little bit of moisture to be had in the clay soil. So I think that's a great asset to have in a vineyard.
Awesome. Can you dry farm in clay though?
He was asking you, Matt.
Yeah. Depends on how much rain you get, but yeah, you can, but it just depends on how much rain you get and how much water is built up in that profile. So yeah, in this area, it's tough. On the wetter years, we may not irrigate out till June or so, depending on the wetter years. But on drier years, you kind of got to start up sooner, like the rest of the area. But as you go further west, that's part of the AVA changes. Is there's more rain out that direction, and they don't, they can get closer and closer to actually just dry farming in those areas as well.
Yeah, I know Phil Hart anyway over there at Ambeth, he dry farms, but I haven't heard of anybody else actually straight up dry farming there. Have you guys?
Sarzati did it one time, but
Oh.
it just, there's so many dry years that it was just a tough time to do that. So yeah, you kind of got to get a couple good wet years in a row, I think, to get those vines established. So yeah.
Huh. Hey, Steve, so you were saying that you've got 17 varieties grown there, but if you could take it down to just a couple, what would grow best, let's just say in your vineyard? I'm not talking the whole El Pomar, but what would just do best there now that we've talked about your 3 different soil types and the like?
I've been saying this for 8 years here. The future of this vineyard is primarily Bordeaux blends. I love the Cabernets from here, and I agree with Soren. If you had to pick a Cabernet and you could only pick one clone, one vineyard, I would probably do a Paso Cab. I mean, a El Pomar Cab. But the having the advantage of the Merlot, which just is beautiful and soft and round and full here, the Cab Franc, which is bright and kind of almost has cranberry character to it, the Petit Verdot, which brings the pepper, just having that palette to play with and all of the different clones and varietals. It's, so I would make a wine, but I would use probably 8 or 9 different things to do it.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say struggles?
Mouvette, primarily because we put it on 1103 pulse, so it buds late and usually isn't ripe until after the 3rd frost in the fall. So
Nice. Soren, I saw you react to that, when he said what it was.
Well, I was on that vineyard a number of years ago, and the contour that Steve is speaking to is absolutely phenomenal. Because Steve, how big is the actual property?
It's 89 acres total, 45 planted.
Okay, but within that, there is a great deal of contour. And one of the neat things, you guys had some esoteric white varieties planted out there, and having all those hillsides, it's kind of cool because you can put some stuff that's a northeast facing, that's in the afternoon shade, which is, that vineyard is super versatile because of the contour, which is quite exceptional.
Yeah, we have just about every exposure known to man. So if you want to go around the compass, you could probably find one somewhere on this property.
Yeah.
And speaking of every facing way you can go, Matt, that ranch that you took me on yesterday, there is just so many nooks and crannies. How many varieties are grown there?
Like Steve was saying, probably too many. What do we got? Maybe, yeah, same thing, probably 15 plus on this property here. Some of them are just real small, Rosaceae, Vermentino, different things that go to specific, like Bonnie Doon or Gallows, certain programs, Petit Syrah, Cab Sauv. We're primarily Cab Sauv because that's what the bigger seller is and the bigger wineries will look for, but there's a fair amount of Petit Syrah here as well, some Sangiovese, and there used to be more. It is an older vineyard, and so we've had to kind of go through and take out some different blocks. So there was some Malbec and some Syrah that we have taken out the last few years just because it was just, it just was overwhelmed with virus. The wood probably wasn't clean when it was first put in back in the early or late 1990s, early 2000s, and the market's changed a little bit, so we kind of replaced it with some other varieties. Like we had Nebbiolo here at one time that apparently did very well, but by the time we got to it, it was just too much virus to go on, really.
Yeah, that's probably something that's a bit challenging when you take on something that's been planted before you, and where you may not get a chance to get onto it as early as you'd like, I suppose, right?
Right. Yeah. It could be so many years past its prime, or the market has changed, or, if you're taking over a property, sometimes the people before it, and they're selling it because they didn't have, maybe enough money to put into the property the years before. So you definitely have some neglect that you have to deal with. And then you figure out, like our Roussanne, which it's in one of our wines coming up here, the Sidetrack White. It looked neglected, and and we were real worried about it. But man, once Jim made the wine, we were pleasantly surprised that it came out beautifully. And now actually we sell a lot of it to Topless Creek Vineyard, which is interesting that block is still around, and we kind of breathe life back into it, and it's doing well.
Yeah, right on. Hey, Soren, so where you are now, you're in the Estrella district, and you're kind of really close to the Salinas River, north of town by about 15 minutes or so. Is there a correlation or a difference, I'm sorry, that you can maybe give the viewers of, say, one particular fruit, maybe it's Cabernet Sauvignon, that's grown there versus, and what its qualities have versus what you might be getting, maybe it's Merlot, because we're going to be having a Merlot in a minute, to the Pomar District?
I think the biggest thing for me is that the El Pomar District seems to cool off a little bit earlier in the afternoon. It gets more breeze channeled through it. So especially with Bordeaux varietals, when you're trying to have a nice long ripening period to kind of age out the pyrazines in the vine, having that afternoon breeze come in really slows the vines down, and you're not going to get your sugars advancing too quickly before your acids are ready, and or you have too much pyrazine still in the load, the canopy. So where we are in the Estrella district is hot, and we're lucky to have some older vines out here, and we get some good airflow, but it doesn't come through quite as early as El Pomar. So
Sure. And that's all due to the Templeton Gap effect that we have here, everyone. So as it gets warm during the day, and I think we've mentioned this before, but we'll say it again, it gets warm during the day, hot air rises, creates a vacuum effect that, of course, is drawing in a lot of the cool air from the Pacific Ocean through that little bit of change of elevation over on the Santa Lucia mountain range, which in the middle of the afternoon in summer, Steve, it can get pretty windy over there. You're kind of right in that window of the gap, huh?
Yes, yeah, it gets quite windy. It's a combination of, we're kind of in the window of the gap, so the prevailing wind is moving that way. And then we're relatively high in this part of the sub-AVA. So the wind just accelerates as it comes up the hill. So it's not uncommon for me to look at my phone and they say it's, 8-mile-an-hour winds in Paso, and there's a 35-mile-an-hour wind on our deck. So
how far do you know? I'm sorry if you don't, but is where your property is situated from the Pacific Ocean?
I actually wrote that down somewhere. I know I got that. 26 miles.
26 miles as the crow flies, or nautical miles, if you will. And so to get that kind of wind and everything, I mean, we're pretty close to the ocean when you think about it, everyone. I mean, granted, I know I go enough that, it takes like 30 minutes to get there because it's not like a highway that takes you there. But the fact that we're that close and we have these winds that make it across, I mean, Soren, those winds still kind of switch and change up and make it to you eventually, right?
Oh, absolutely. We do. It seems to happen a little bit later in the afternoon. And the longer the sun's shining and the vines are nice and warm, they're going to continue pumping sugars and building sugar. So I think that an advantage of El Pomar is that it shuts down a little bit earlier. And especially for Bordeaux varietals, it just tends to lengthen out and you get this nice long hang time that you're looking for.
Yeah. And where you sit, where you're kind of in the north end of the AVA, you're also getting a little bit of influence of air flowing down the Salinas Valley from Monterey, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So although it might not be cool air, it's still basically moving air. And so at least it's allowing some sort of cooling effect.
Absolutely, yes, for sure.
Yeah, right on.
We still do get quite a bit
let's drink some wine. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, the prevailing wind still mostly is west to east. It does blow through in that direction for sure, but it does channel down through the Salinas Valley.
Yeah. So white wine. We have a white wine in front of us. Jim Shoemate, you've been there. You've been silent and patient. If all of you watching don't know, this guy's a legend. And I want to get you talking a little bit, Jim. What Sidetrack White? What do we got going on here?
So this is a nice Rhone white blend that I've got. 50% Viognier, 35% Roussanne, 15% Grenache Blanc, all estate grown. The Viognier and Grenache Blanc come from the Pomar Junction vineyard. And then the Roussanne, as Matt mentioned earlier, comes off this property, the Creston Ridge property. And all of them, I make 100% varietals of each of these, but then blending them together really showcases what they can be combined when they're combined, and they're really nice. So each one of these is fermented separately, and then because of tank space, they are put into neutral oak barrels. But also I throw in about 10% acacia wood onto the Roussanne and the Viognier, and then aged for about 5 months, and then blended together and bottled. So it's quick to market and quick to drink, hopefully. So it's a really good, nice, fruit forward type of white blend, and goes with a lot of good foods, or just sitting outside on a nice sunny afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my wife really digs this wine sitting outside on a sunny Sunday, any day afternoon, to be honest, as I fumble my words. It's a really delicious wine. Before I get into another question following up on this, we do have a question from Mark here on the Zoom side of things. Does Grenache Blanc grow well in the heat?
No, I think it needs a little heat for sure. Yeah, big ol', it has some fairly good sized clusters, and the heat does it well, actually. Definitely gets it ripe. Was this one of the later ones that you pull in for?
So Grenache Blanc usually comes in later for me. Where this block is on our property is down at the bottom of a hill, and it's kind of southwest facing, but there's a big band of trees just beyond it. And so it gets a lot of shade later in the afternoon. So it definitely, this is the last white that comes in, and I'm usually getting into the red wines already with harvest, and I'm going, oh no, now I got to clean the press completely and get ready for pressing off another white wine. So this usually comes in late September, where most of the whites are already done by then.
Oh, wow. Late September.
Yeah.
We just did a show on late ripening varieties, and we were talking about Peak Pool Blanc and the fact that that one can come in pretty late. This is right up there with it.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I've had it as early as the second week, or as late as the second week of October too. So it just depends. The clusters are big, and it does take a little bit of time to get that ripeness that I'm looking for, and get rid of that green flavor, and really get the sugars and the acid where I want it.
And that's kind of what you guys are talking about with the temperatures of the El Pomar District. I kind of call it the Goldilocks of the AVAs and sub AVAs of Paso, is that it's not too hot, but it's not too cool. It's just kind of just right. And so on a cooler year, you've got enough heat units to ripen everything up, and everything will get ripe. And then on the warmer year, it still is cool enough that you get the characteristics that you're looking for with some high quality wines too.
That's pretty good. I might have to steal that, the Goldilocks of Paso. I already see the map outline with some, anyway. I dig this one. Soren, you sipping on this one?
I am. And, for those of you that aren't actually trying this alongside of us, and I mean this in a very, very endearing way, I love that it has a little bit of texture to it. That big old chunk of limestone sitting in front of you guys, a little bit of that comes through on the end, and it just gives a touch of texture after all that beautiful fruit and acidity. And I think it really plays well.
Yeah, thank you. This is a sample of that soil. This is a little piece of the calcareous rock that we pulled from the vineyard. But yeah, you can definitely taste the minerality that just gets pulled up, and it's just a flagship, paramount part of the El Pomar wines that you taste across the board. I could taste my neighbors. I had, Bar Estate Vineyards had a Merlot at a tasting a few years ago, and I went through and man, I really like this. And he goes, well, that's funny. It came from your neighbors across the street over there. So maybe I just was used to tasting my own for so long. I finally picked something out it was really nice. So you could definitely taste this area for sure.
Steve, you're your own guy and your own, brand, Anglum wines. And what are your thoughts on this wine and from El Pomar? Have you sourced, I should ask you, Rhone varieties for your program, for your Anglum program from Pomar?
I brought some. I used to get Viognier from farther down El Pomar. I've used some of the Grenache Blanc from this property before. But yeah, we're kind of in our program, we're kind of a West Side program, kind of focusing that way.
Yeah.
But what I love about this wine, I think Jim did a great job. He kind of contained the Viogniers characteristic to be way too floral for my taste. And it's subdued in a beautiful way. And the Roussanne really has a nice mouthfeel. And the Grenache Blanc is kind of there, kind of to carry the balance. I think it's a really pretty blend.
Thanks. Yeah, the Viognier can definitely overpower if you allow it to, and become way too floral, way too weighty, and too aromatic, and it's hard to differentiate between the other two varietals if you have too much of it. So with this blend, it really shows itself, but without overtaking everybody else.
Pretty.
Let's talk Viognier for just a second, because you can get some Viogniers that, and probably like this one, which it can be quite lean and not overly floral. And then you can find some that are just so floral and so waxy that it's just too much. Where and how would we find one of those as compared to where we're finding, say, this nice leaner version of VO?
My experience with Viognier is they tend to all be very flowery and kind of in that overpowering sense. And the winemaker's got to work both with the vineyard manager and in the cellar to kind of pull that back. So if you just pick it early, put it in a tank, keep it clean, it's going to be most likely very overly floral. So you've got to play some games to pull that back.
Yeah. Well, it's a great wine, beautiful. I don't know. I could totally see having a little bit of some sort of a fun, very vibrant, if anything, really spicy seafood of some sort, along with this shellfish, or maybe even having one of those. Oh man, where was that? I used to go in Carmel, the Forge in the Forest. They had this bucket of steamers that you could have there, and it would be all spiced out with pepper and bread, and this thing would be rad. So anyway, let's move on to a Merlot, shall we? So we got the Hurst Ranch Merlot, this guy right here. Sauron, tell us a little bit about it. Where did this fruit come from, and why did you like it, and all that good stuff?
So 78% of it comes from the Pomar Junction Vineyard. And we did round it out. I was just talking about the amazing balance and versatility of the El Pomar fruit. 22% of it is Petit Verdot from our Estrella Ranch here. But the Merlot, for me, that comes off of that property, just has this impeccable mid palate to it. And again, that chalkiness of the soil really comes through in there. It's got amazing fruit character. And really, I just put that little bit of the 22% of Petit Verdot in just to lengthen it out a little bit. Predominantly aged in neutral oak. And I think it just really highlights the great fruit purity that is inherent in there, and don't mess with it.
Yeah, Petit Verdot. Oftentimes, what is it adding as a grape in general? What is it doing?
I typically use it to lengthen a blend. It just tends to have a little bit more back end structure to it that'll elongate your tannin structure. So that's mainly where I use it when we're not trying to craft it into a standalone wine by itself.
Yeah, Merlot can come out a little pale at times. What are we seeing from Merlot from El Pomar, and is your Petit Verdot adding some color as well?
It adds a touch, but there's 3 different vineyard blocks we pull from out there, and they all have got a fair amount of age. I think Matt could speak to that, but 8-1, 8-2, and then vineyard block 3. But they've got some good root depth to them, and they don't really rely on a whole lot of surface irrigation. So the berries are nice and small, and the resulting wine usually has good color because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matt, talk a little bit about the Merlot that's grown there. Is it higher elevation or lower when it comes to being from that specific ranch?
We kind of have Merlot all over that ranch. So even the blocks that Soren's talking about, I think they were planted, what was it, 2007 or so, 2006 maybe, somewhere around there. So it kind of, it feels like they're really new in my mind, but I guess it's been a few years now. They start off kind of lower down the creek and work their way up. So the elevations at Pomar top out, I think, are around almost 1,200, more like 1,140, I think is the tippy top. And so we have some Merlot from that area at the top, and then some Merlot that kind of works its way down the hill too. So you kind of get a combination of some higher peaks and then also some lower valley type areas. And so the Merlot likes, I believe it kind of likes that cooler swell that some of that block is in, where it gets some nighttime cooling, and then there's some airflow through. Like when it frosts in the fall, the first frost of the year hits this section after it's been picked, but it hits this section, you can see it's like a river flowing through, and this cold air, where you feel it at night during the summer as well, is this nice cool air working its way through the vineyard. And so I think what's interesting is that Merlot has some depth to it, where it has some of that higher elevation type aspects to it, but then also gets a little bit of that cooler. So within one block, you can get a variation in the fruit.
Huh, that's cool. Hey, Jim, I want to put you on the spot, much like you did to me with your students at Unified a couple of years ago. What do you think of this wine?
Well, I think Soren did a great job. As soon as I smelled this, I could smell Pomar Junction Merlot. I mean, Block 3 that Soren mentioned is where I get a lot of the Merlot that I worked with off of that vineyard. Also Block 9, I like a lot, but I get so little amount of the fruit that, I get to pick and choose which rows it's going to come from before some of the other people come in and get the rest of it. So it's nice to be able to cherry pick that block and be able to pull some of that fruit off. But this Merlot, it's just, I love the cherry in it and just the flavor profile of it. And the Petit Verdot, I know that it, kind of like the Viognier, can overpower if you go too far with it. And I think Soren did a great job with presenting it and allowing it to lengthen, as he said, with lengthen the finish on the wine. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Steve, do you grow Merlot out there?
Yes. Yeah, we just actually doubled the amount of Merlot we have. We just grafted over some blocks to Merlot because we've had, as the vines have matured a little bit, we've seen some wonderful stuff coming out of the Merlot block.
Nice, nice. Talk about this wine.
What I really like about this wine, I've had it open for probably 45 minutes, and I was very pleasantly surprised when I came back to it. All of that structure and fruit development that Soren was talking about, when it first opened, it was a little tight. And after about a half an hour, it just kind of really opens up and softens, kind of rounds out. And I might have to drink the rest of this soon. Yeah.
I'm sure Soren will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Are you catching qualities like they're talking about when it comes to Merlot and the El Pomar?
Yes, I don't know what clone they're working with. We work with 181. So we tend to get a little darker color, little kind of black cherry, fatter, rounder kind of character, considerably darker color, similar profiles though. It's kind of like the same, but different. So you get it coming through the wine. It's not overly tannic like you would see in the Adelaida, and it's floral, and it's really quite pretty.
So Merlot, and this is for all of you guys, it kind of comes in, it's kind of a mellow dude. It doesn't really, you know, come out that early, kind of early, right? Kind of an early budding variety, but it's not crazy early. And then, you know, it doesn't hang around for too long. I mean, but are there challenges though in growing Merlot in general though?
Well, yeah, Merlot, I mean, typically likes to, in our vineyard where we bought it and there was already, you know, the section that we grafted some, actually it was Chardonnay at one time and we grafted over to Merlot, 181 clone as well. But with the trellis system, it doesn't want to grow straight up and just hold itself. It wants to fall all over the place. So you kind of got to guide it the way you want it, and then really set yourself up to have those guide wires hold it. Like the picture you were showing of the vineyards there at Bovino, how you got those wires there that can really hold that in the right spot. Because if you don't have that, Merlot tends to kind of just twist and fall over and then grow short little shoots and then longer shoots and then just have an incredible amount of sun, like we're talking about with the heat and sun exposure, where you get overripe raisiny fruit and underripe in the same clusters. So you kind of want to guide it, let some sun in there, but not have it become, you know, just baked and raisiny on half the clusters, because that can easily happen, especially with Merlot.
Yeah. So
And one-
I know you probably don't have any favorites, but you dig making this wine because it's really good. I mean, this is a really great wine.
It's super fun. We planted some Merlot. It's not going to be producing for another year, but it's so funny when that Goofy movie came along, however many years ago that was. It's really hard to find fantastic Merlot as a buyer right now. There's a lack of it, or the people that grow it hold on to it because they know what they have. So we planted a couple acres, so we're excited to have some on our estate. But yeah, we're super stoked with the stuff we get off of Pomar Junction, and we're happy to keep getting it until ours is ready.
Yeah, right on. We're at 3:45. We've got just a little bit more time left. Why don't we get into our third wine, and we'll get Steve Anglem to start talking about this, which I know I'm going to get the name of this specific wine. I mean, it's Bovino Vineyards, but it's Joludi.
Joludi. It's a blend of Joe and Ludre, who were the parents of the owner. So it's kind of a composite name that has some family history here.
Our blend, let's see, it is Cabernet Sauvignon 55%, Merlot 40%, and Cab Franc 5%.
Yes, it is.
So talk about what went into this wine, and you know, why I love the fact that you put on the bottle already, Left Bank Reserve.
Well, I'm so creative when it comes to coming up with names for wines. So hopefully now that
you're already straight up on this one.
Now, is that the left bank of the Salinas River?
Yeah, exactly. Because we are right to the Salinas River, which is kind of like Merlot, Petit Verdot kind of thing. So yeah, I knew you were going to take me down that path. That's so bad. Yeah, this one, I mean, we have the 4 different clones of Cabernet. This one's got the 337 and the C clone. We have 2 different clones of Cab Franc, the 623 and the 327. Those both get put together in the fermenter, even if they're fermented separately. When they go to barrel together. And then the 181 Merlot. The advantage of this is I'm a late blender. I'm one of those guys that makes the wine separately and kind of, you know, parks them, and then a year later sits down and says what works best together. Hence, that's where this blend came from. The only guideline is, you know, we're left and right bank of the Salinas River. So the idea was that this one had to be primarily Cabernet Sauvignon. So here the Cabernet brings the structure, the Merlot brings the fruit, the softness, and the Cab Franc, in my mind, just brings this little pop of very bright fruit character to the wine.
Yeah, we haven't talked at all about Cab Franc. I mean, we've talked at length about Merlot, at length about Cabernet Sauvignon, but Cab Franc in this area, I mean, I would think that, how much are you growing of Cab Franc out there at Bovino?
We have about 3 acres.
Okay, all right. I mean, let's talk about Cab Franc. Cab Franc tends to be kind of, at least from a California standpoint, like red fruit, red raspberries, kind of a sweet strawberry type of structure. Is that what we're seeing from Bovino as well?
Yeah, it's a very bright, and what I love about Cab Franc, I mean, Cab Franc and Petit Verdot to an even greater extent are primarily blenders for a reason. But every 2 to 4 years, the Cab Franc by itself can be just absolutely glorious. I mean, it's one of those varietals that when it unlike Merlot, I've never seen a winemaker get really excited about a Merlot coming out of the fermenter. Cab Franc, sometimes it comes out and it's just floral and elegant and beautiful, and it just wants to be by itself. Other years, maybe it wants to hide in the cellar and wait for something to join it. So,
yeah, I'm digging the acid on this. Jim and Matt, for that matter, talk a little bit about some of the things that you're getting out of this wine.
Well, I love the aromatics on it. The dark fruit that you're getting, the boysenberries, the blueberries, things like that are really nice. And then you take a sip of it and you can get all the different components that are in there. And then the nice tannins on the finish, and it's a really long finish. It just really lingers in your mouth. It's got great weight to it. It's really nicely done. I like it all the way around.
What I didn't tell Jim, but I might have opened these last night and started drinking it a little bit, and it's allowed both of these wines to soften a little bit and really just open up. This one, especially, it was just a little bit more tight, very dark, very luscious, you know, and so now it's really just opened up and very rounded flavor-wise and well balanced and very nice, yeah.
So I get to take the rest home, right?
Sauron, what are you eating with this this wine?
I'm in a cellar, Chris. I have nothing here.
No, I mean eventually. What do you want to eat?
My mom's in town visiting. We'll go out to dinner tonight. Well, I'll bring this home for a little wine and cheese beforehand, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I was.
Yeah. What would you pair with it, though?
I was really impressed with the amazing balance of it. Much like Matt said, it's got this amazing color to it. It's super intense. I was expecting a wine that was a little bit more aggressive, and it just has this beautiful balance to it, and it's very regal in its weight and the mouthfeel. I mean, geez, this, because it has such an elegant weight to it, I think this is really versatile with its pairing. I know you can't judge a wine by its color, but certainly I would have said, like, just looking at it, you need a creamy cheese. I keep looking over here because I'm looking at it, but no, I mean, it's just super elegant, which is absolutely delicious. Steve, you did a fantastic job on it.
Right on, right on. I feel like I definitely want to have myself something definitely that's going to be really fatty, where I can have all of this acid kind of helping to cut through it, like a really great ribeye later or something like that. Already thinking meat, so sorry for all you non-meat eaters out there, but I'm definitely thinking meat for later.
Well, that works because, you know, Shoemate's got to bring me some like Moroccan seared scallops to go with his wine, so that'll work just fine.
That's right. Oh, Moroccan seared scallops, dude, that's smart.
Yeah.
Let's eat. I'm hungry. I barely had any lunch today. That's why I'm sorry, you guys. I keep saying, what are you going to eat with this? Or come on, let's
Wait, he stopped by Pier 46 and he'll be here in about 30 minutes. So I got a kitchen for him to cook in. So we're good.
Ours goes good with Estrella District ground squirrel.
Rattlesnake tacos. That's my favorite.
Oh man, just got to pull the buckshot out first, right? Awesome, you guys. What have we not talked about when it comes to the Pomar District? What am I missing here? Open question.
Well, I think you're talking about the food friendliness of these wines. I think that's kind of a staple to the Pomar District, is just this food friendliness that it's just hard to get away from that. Everything you can drink on its own, but you can also pair it with so many different dishes. It doesn't overwhelm those dishes as well.
Yeah, and also the diversity that's in this district of all the different districts around here. I don't know of any other one that grows this many different varietals. I know Steve has said he's got too many. We've probably got too many, but still we can grow them and we can do it successfully and be able to make great wines out of all of these different varietals that are grown in this area.
Yeah, and there's a few mini brands that are in the Pomar. I know Sarzati, of course. I actually over the weekend picked up a Grenache from them, and it's quite delicious. It's very pretty. It's not really all that aggressive by any means. It's so red fruit, fruitiness. It's amazing. You've got Cab House just down the street as well. I think Hidden Oak is around the corner. So a few many brands, and then of course a lot of vineyards. Oh, and then Stillwaters. How can we forget Stillwaters? And a piece of Vino Robles actually straddles the AVA. The AVA line goes right over one of their high ridge lines of their vineyard, where half of it is in the El Pomar and the other half is in the Geneseo. It's quite a sight actually. It's pretty cool. So this has been a great conversation, you guys. Thanks so much. It's been a lot of fun. Great wines. Let's take a chance to talk a little bit about what's next for you guys. What are you doing? What's happening in your world, whether it be in the tasting room or winemaking or whatever? Let's start with you, Soren.
We have been bottling like crazy, which Tony Quayle, thank you for watching, just texted, why the heck are you sitting in front of your case goods? We are full. We've been bottling like nuts. Just trying to get our wines in bottles so they can be rested by the time they're released. So it's been very aggressive in that regard, but we're getting ready for bud break here. Our Tempranillo is getting a little fuzzy on the buds. So we'll start to see some green growth here in the next couple of weeks.
Take some pictures.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So it's just you hit the reset button on 2020 and soon enough 2021 is going to be off and running here. So in the wine world, that is.
Yeah, right on. Guys over there at Pomar, what's happening?
Well, let's see. Yeah, we're talking about some bug breaks. We have some Sangiovese that's pushing out. That's some of the first stuff, but I think we're not too far off from everything else. And then we're looking at, May, we're going to do a winemaker dinner and kind of see things back to normal a little bit. We're going to do an outdoor dinner out here at the vineyard at Crescent Ridge, and then also we're looking at doing a special wine club event for the first time. That's not going to be Zoom. It's going to be in person. So hopefully everything keeps going the right direction. And we're looking forward to seeing people again for sure.
Right on. How do people find out about winemaker dinners and all that?
Our website, or Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. But yeah, website for sure.
Cool. What's that website?
PomarJunction.com. That's the best website around. So yeah, PomarJunction.com. Instagram, Pomar Junction Winery, and Facebook, Pomar Junction Vineyard. We'll try to switch it up on every single one. So.
Jim, what you got going on? You got school, but what's happening there?
Well, actually, I'm heading down to San Diego, traveling for the first time this weekend. I've got a winemaker dinner in San Diego on Saturday night. First one in God knows how long, but it's going to be at the Wine Cellar and Brasserie down in Sorrento Mesa.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, this place has been around since the 80s. It's a great restaurant, really great wine list. And I actually used to go there when I lived in San Diego before I ever got into the industry, because they had a great wine cellar that you could buy from. And that's where I really learned a lot about wine before I came up here. So it's going to be a lot of fun to go back and take my wines down there. So
yeah,
good.
That's awesome. That place is bitching, man. If you haven't been there, go check it out, because you can buy wine and they've got case goods like on the floor and stacked and stuff. Lots of great discoveries. And then you can actually have an amazing meal there in that little upstairs little thing. And yeah, that place is. And then tell the audience real quick though, Jim, that you're also over at Cal Poly.
Yeah, so I'm a lecturer and winery manager for Cal Poly. I teach the Advanced Enology series down at Cal Poly, and we've got a brand new facility that's almost done. It's about 95% done. It should be open this summer. So the students are going to be able to learn in a actual facility rather than a closet like we've been working in for the last 13 years. So we're really excited about that. We're actually going to be producing the official Cal Poly wines on campus, along with the student-made wines, and doing a lot of research wines as well. So it's a 5,000 case winery. We're going to be producing maybe about 2,000 cases, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. And the students that come through there are great. And then they go out into the industry and end up working for a lot of the local wineries. So it's really great.
Yeah, and it's great for us considering our region is so close to one of the top 3 schools. I'm sure arguably the top is what Jim would say of all the 3 winemaking schools in the state. So we won't mention the other 2. Steve Anglem, what's happening with you? Bovino, but also Anglem.
Oh, well, 2 things. One, if Soren's willing to do it, I think we should go join Jim's class for the next fall session. I think that would be. Bovino, we're trying to get fired up to go back to normal here. So the place changed ownership and then COVID hit. So we, like Pomar, we're getting ready to start doing our first patio dinners, our first events, our first vineyard tours with picnics. And we're just hoping and praying that it continues to keep moving in a direction that we can go that way. With my program, I mean, I'm small, so I just keep doing what I do and hide in my little cave. And, you know, most of the time I'm here though. So the issue with Bovino, we're really just looking to be able to open. We want to get started and really get this place fired up and get it rolling.
You guys have food over there too, right now? So,
I'm sorry?
you guys have food, a great chef over there I've heard about.
Yes.
Bovino?
Yeah, she does a great job. And we're going to start challenging her with private dinners and like sunset dinners on the patio. Because as you know, the sunsets looking west from here are unbelievably stunning. So, and we have that opportunity, and hopefully the world will keep moving in a direction that we can do that.
Yeah, right on. So, and you guys all have some stunning locations. The views from Bovino, of course, looking west over sunsetting over the Santa Lucia mountain range. Soren, you guys have 2 locations. One, of course, there in the Estrella district, but also that one that you were mentioning at the beginning over there in San Simeon Cove, which the Cove is like one of my most favorite places on the planet Earth. And so that's a great place to go taste and hopefully have a snack. And then once things get rolling again for you guys, I know, Matt, you showed me around yesterday. And when you're having some of those private dinners and the like, man, what a cool, amazing, beautiful place to enjoy some Pomar wine. So thanks, guys, a lot. Cheers to you. There's just a little bit left in there, but I'll have.
Thank you, Chris. You're the best.
Shut up.
Oh, I think we should.
All right, right on later. Hey, everyone, tune in next week for Paso Wine Hour when we talk about the must charities. And we're going to have Becky Gray on, Carol from Must Charities. We'll also have Carol McDonald from Il Cortile and Jim Maroney from 6 Mile Bridge. We're going to be talking about Must Charities and all the good work that they do in our community. All right, right on. See you guys.
Thank you.